few weeks ago I showed you how to make this 45-degree miter sled for your table saw, and while it does a great job at making 45-degree miters on material for picture frames, I also mentioned it doesn't do a good job at making 45-degree cuts on panels, such as making 45-degree mitered boxes. This is the crosscut sled that you've probably seen me use before. I always prefer a one-sided sled as opposed to a two-sided sled, because if you're pushing through onto one side only, then typically you're not going to be standing behind the blade and you're not going to be hit in the face with a bunch of sawdust. In both sides, one-sided versus two-sided sleds, they'll pretty much do the same thing, but I don't like to be hit in the face with sawdust, so that's why I prefer a one-sided sled. Technically, I can just tilt the blade 45 degrees because I have a left tilting table saw and make some 45-degree panels, but I'm not going to get that great of a cut because it's not going to be zero clearance. I'm not going to have any material support on the bottom side, so I may get a little bit more chip out. So what I'm going to do is make a two-sided sled that is specifically set up for me to make 45-degree cuts. If you haven't already noticed, I'm making this whole project out of OSB. I have a bunch of 3/4 inch OSB Advantech flooring left over, so I'm going to use as much of it as I can. And actually, OSB over the years has made a lot of improvements in the standards in which it has to live up to, so I don't think that this is going to be that bad of an option. I think it's going to hold up a lot better than what the initial impression of OSB will lead you to believe. Just as I did when I made my miter sled, my runner is about 7/8 of an inch wide, and I'm going to adjust it down to the exact width of my miter slot by using a cheap pair of digital calipers and a dial indicator. Again, these aren't necessary, but they do save a lot of headache. I just trimmed the runners down to the exact height of my miter slot. Now, some people like to make the runners a little bit less than the height of their miter slot, and that is so that if there's any dust or debris in the way, it won't affect the surface of the sled. Now, I don't see this being a problem because I'm pretty good about blowing stuff out, and I've done all my sleds this way, and I've never had a problem with it. So I've got them sitting up just a little bit with glue on top. That way, once I put the base piece on, it will get a good glue contact and push everything down into place where it needs to be. The glue has cured on the runners, and it's actually a little bit more snug than what I want, but I think it's going to be okay. I'm going to go ahead and cut this into two pieces, but first I need to tilt the blade to 45 degrees. I've just secured the fence near the kerf line with one screw from below, and that'll allow us to pivot the fence to get it perpendicular to the kerf line. So I'm just going to use a framing square and get it as close as I can. And that's close enough for me. You can get really crazy and get this down to thousandths of an inch or less than that actually by using the 5-cut method or actually a dial indicator and a machinist square. But for me, I've had pretty good luck just using a carpenter square, so that's what I'm going to stick with. Now I've got it pretty darn close, and without bumping the fence, I'm going to slide it over here, clamp it down, and then finish screwing it down. Alright, so I've got the right hand part of the sled 180 degrees, so now that the front fence is actually in the back. And I'm going to attach the back fence with the same accuracy and alignment that I did the front fence, and that is because my miter slots are a different distance from the blade. So with the bigger side, on the right hand side, I'll have a 45 degree kerf, and then if I flip the jig 180 degrees, or the sled 180 degrees, I can cut a 90 degree line, and both fences will be perpendicular to the blade. Now I can slide the other half of the sled in below these rails and attach it to the rails in just the same way. I know there's a lot of other crosscut sleds out there on YouTube already, but I have a couple of projects in mind for the future where having a 45 degree dedicated sled setup would be very handy, so I went ahead and made one. Now keep in mind that if your miter slots are offset from the blade by different distances, such as mine, then this can serve as a double duty sled. Just flip it 180 degrees and cut a normal 90 degree cut, and then you have a traditional crosscut sled. And lastly, I made mine out of OSB, not out of choice, but more out of convenience. I already had a bunch of this stuff laying around, so I might as well use it up. If I was to make it over again, I probably would go with 1/2-inch plywood, but I think the OSB is going to work out all right. Well, I hope you're able to find this video useful. Thanks for watching, folks, and have a great day.